Hello, my name is Maria Bezubova and you're at my channel Fertilizers Jazz. Here we talk about events, trends, technologies in the world of fertilizers and agriculture. Please subscribe to the channel, put like to this video, and let's jazz! Today we continue discussing trends and expectations for Q4. During past month, I met with Silvia Toganida to discuss ammonia market and with Chris Flachopoulos to discuss phosphate segment. Please check these interviews if you missed them somehow. Today I'm very glad to host a super cool guest, Deepika Thapliyal, Deputy Managing Editor of Fertilizers at ICIS, and to discuss the hottest topic of these days, urea market. I'm happy to welcome you, Deepika, and thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Maria, and you're so kind to have me in your show. If I don't know what should I call it, a show, but I'm very excited to be here. And special thank you. My name is not easy, especially my last name, and you got it absolutely right. So I appreciate that.
You know, I have the same problem with mine, so I can always understand that very well. So Deepika, last time when I discussed nitrogen market trends with market analysts here in my channel, it was sometimes end of May, and we discussed at that time trends and expectations for Q3. And now it seems like 100 years passed since then. Time passes so quickly and so many events are happening, and not only in fertilizers world, of course, but mostly in open world, which influence our world as well. If we zoom to urea market, that is our key topic today, what we experienced during this Q3. So first of all, 2 Indian tenders, which is not very usual in one quarter. Also, we had production halts in Egypt due to gas cuts. Also, we experienced sluggish demand from some key consuming markets due to mostly extreme weather conditions and related problems with agricultural production. So we are entering Q4 now, and we are right in the eye of the storm, I think, when we talk. So today I would like to discuss your view upon current situation and key trends for the Q4 for urea. And my first question to you would be, of course, it will be related to this awful price rally that we are experiencing right now, that we saw at the end of last week and beginning of this week. So what is your opinion? Which factor is playing more significant role here? Is it geopolitical tensions, or is it still a fact of the Indian tender? How long do you think this rally will last?
Thanks, Maria. Actually, you summed it up perfectly. And exactly, the market was already going up, I think, before the tension started escalating in the Middle East. For urea, prices were already looking up because, like you said, we had these Indian tenders. And, this whole year we've been talking about how domestic production in India is up, and they're not going to come back with as many tenders as they have done in the past few years. And so the market had gone into this sort of an expectation that we're not going to see India really come back very often. And they've done just the opposite. And in fact, Q4 looks very tight. And all these reasons have led to the market going up. For India, the main issue has been they have zero DAP. It's been so minuscule, the inventory on phosphate side, that they've realized that the focus now, or probably the government now, is trying to push more urea and SSP to the farmers. And I think that is the main reason why we have seen these tenders, and we will see more tenders towards the end of the year as well. Then we've also had the monsoon, which was actually much better than expected. It was above normal. It got extended. It started very slow in June, but July, August, it picked up. And in September, if I talk to my friends in Bombay, it's still raining, and no one it doesn't really rain towards, in October. So the monsoon has got extended. So all these factors have led to there being so much more sales in the domestic market than they were expected. We've also seen some domestic maintenance for urea plants in India. And we know that domestic production is really much higher in India. In the previous year, if you see year on year, it was up by 20%. And that's been a big jump as well. So it is high, but it's not enough because the demand is a lot more. And all these factors have meant that they've had to come and tender more times than what the market was expecting. And because of this, prices were anywhere on the way up. And it was all India related. As always, we've had the same problems. And I'm sure you'll ask me about this later, about the other markets that are coming in season. Everywhere buyers have been very cautious. So it was all this whole Indian tender game that we've seen last few tenders that makes last few years that makes prices go up. So that was happening. And then on top of that, there were minute, once again, production cuts in Egypt. It not as bad as the summer, but there were a few days when there were issues, and people waking up like, what is wrong with Egypt again? Because they have been importing a lot of LNG cargoes. And then these Middle East tensions, that doesn't help. That has further aggravated the situation, because people once again worried that, will there be even more sanctions on Iran? We know Iranian tons now go very freely to Turkey, to Brazil, to Africa, to even to Southeast Asia, to so many markets. So people worrying if that would be an issue. So many sales have happened out of Iran, but will the producers be able to perform if things escalate? So that has aggravated the whole situation. And then, I mean, coming back to India, our estimates are they need to buy at least another 2 million tons from now until end of the year. And in this tender, and I'm sorry I'm going on for so long, so I mean, please feel free to break me up anytime. But on India, again, this tender, it looks like it won't be a successful tender, because there are not many. It's still in progress, but there's nobody really interested to sell to India, not to the West Coast, especially because prices were lower than expected. So they may just get 50,000 tons for the West Coast, which is what? It is absolutely nothing. And that 50,000 also, because that is the lowest price. So that seller will have to will get an award. And they're yet to issue counters for the East Coast, because the Indian government also looks at the price difference. The West Coast price is almost $25 cheaper than the East Coast price. So they're wondering whether they should tender. So, this whole suspense maintains. Even if they counter for the East Coast, they've only countered for the West Coast so far. I don't think there will be many sellers willing to accept these prices, even though the East Coast price is so much higher, because the shipment window is 20th of November. So that's a very tight shipment window. You're seeing all these escalations happen. So people are not sure whether they want to step in right now. If somebody's short, they don't know if they will be able to cover. And definitely, as of now, prices of urea look like they're going up globally. So all these factors, and then everyone is aware that India needs to buy at least 2 million tons from now until the end of the year. And I would say, from people in the market, 2 million is a very conservative estimate. There are some people who are even more bullish. So we need to see on that. So definitely people are expecting more tenders. So maybe they just wait for the next tender from India to come, because the expectation is, as of now, it will come very soon.
Thank you. And so regarding the volume of this tender, you already mentioned that there is a very, very small amount that was already proposed. Before the tender, everyone was discussing that perhaps the tender volume might be somewhere around 1 million tons. But right now, what is your, let's say, best guess? What it could be, taking into account all these moments that you already mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I almost wish we had recorded this podcast a few days later, because we would have more
yeah, but that is the suspense.
Yeah, true. But so I would think for now, 50,000 for the West Coast. I don't think anybody wants to match. So 50, and if they decide to award L1 on the East Coast, that's another 100,000 tons. So that's 150,000 tons. Maybe somebody wants to do best case 1 cargo, 2 cargo here. I don't think, best case scenario, I think they will hit 200,000 tons, maybe 300,000 tons. Is just a guess as of now, because we don't even know if India will counter for the East Coast. But the way things are going, they just might, because they would also be aware that if there's another tender, the price will definitely be higher. So it's all a bit up in the air in India. But yeah, last tender, they bought 1.1 million tons, just more than that. This tender, which is like less than a month later, I don't think they will get more than 200,000 tons, best case. So it's nothing. They need a lot more than this volume.
And if this is really the case, when do you think the next tender will evolve?
Yeah, so like people are just there. I would have thought in November, because they will give it a few weeks and then they will come out with another tender. There are some people who even think October. It could happen in the next few weeks. We could see another tender because we all know it takes so long, right? From the time they tender to the time they
Right.
award to the time those vessels sail to the time that shipment reaches the ports, and then from the ports, India is a huge country, so from the time it comes to the port to the time it goes to the farmer, so that takes almost two months, that whole cycle. So yeah, I think they will want to come back as soon as possible. And best case estimate right now, there are people expecting another tender in October for, I guess, for December shipment.
I see. Thank you. You already touched a bit, but maybe you can tell a bit more about Indian production because every year and even every month we see that more and more self-sufficiency is being in progress, let's say, for India. So, what is the situation now with production on the production side?
So on the production side, they actually have done a fab job. I think nobody was expecting, everyone was expecting delays and maybe this claims of self-sufficiency will not really materialize. Of course, that's not going to happen because their Indian urea consumption is so high, and there is always so much urea that is going to go to India. Also, not the best that the farmers don't prefer other products because they're so much more expensive. Urea is fully subsidized, as we know. So urea is not even like it's priced so cheap. It's almost it's nothing compared to where the global price of urea is. So it's not great for the soil, but if they don't have phosphates, which is the case this year, so I think there are a lot of external factors as well that have contributed to this Indian demand. But on the domestic side, actually, they have ramped up production quite a lot. It's very difficult to get any fixed figures from India, but it was already 20% higher in the previous fiscal year. And this year, I'm sure it will go up by another 10%. So they will at some point, hit the ceiling when it comes to new domestic production. But as of now, it's still ramping up. We've just seen it's just in the last month or so, there have been some maintenance or some plants have gone offline. So maybe that hasn't helped the situation. But yeah, they're well on track. They're all producing at good rates, ramping up production. I think one final plant will also come on stream some point end of this year or next year. So on the production side, I think India has done a very good job, but I don't think India will ever be self-sufficient. They will always need to import something. This year already, the imports are higher than and I have to be very clear, imports have fallen year on year. Like, of course, they are lower because of the situation with the production being higher domestically, but imports are still a lot higher than what we were expecting it to be. So, I mean, India still needs to buy quite a lot of urea. So, at least I would say this year they will buy maybe in total 5 million tons. Over the next few years, maybe that would through tenders and imports, etc., come down to 4 million, 3 million as well. But I don't think India can be completely self-sufficient. And that's only because there's so much demand locally.
Indeed, yeah, indeed. So let's now maybe move to other important markets because yes, India is very, very important, but there are also other markets that start their demand right now when their application in Q4 actually will be the main application window, like South America, for example. How do you see how their demand might influence general market balance in Q4, and also taking into account what we just discussed for India?
Yeah, so I think, and this has been a very maybe not really surprising, that everywhere buyers are very cautious. I think no one wants to step in too soon and get stuck with inventory, which is higher priced. And I think that caution is not really helping. Also, we are seeing a lot of external factors because, for example, in South America, it's all about the rain. In Mexico, it hasn't rained. So the demand is very slow. Argentinians as well, they're all just sitting, they're just waiting. There have been more imports this year than in previous years there, but they just prefer to wait to see where the market is headed, probably wait to see what the results of the Indian tender will be like. But I think eventually buyers will realize that India is going to have to step in more regularly in the next few months. So, I mean, they should all come in to buy, but we are not seeing this. Demand is still so thin. We talk about Indian tenders, we talk about geopolitical tensions, but take Brazil, for example. There, the prices have gone up for all the factors we already spoke about, Indian tender, geopolitical, global trend. But buyers there are very well aware that there's so much supply coming their way. So they, farmers still not really stepping in to buy. And I think rain is another factor in Brazil. It's an issue. They're all waiting for rain. Although one of our Brazilian colleagues was telling us that the forecast is that it's going to rain from mid-October. So probably then, if they step in, that could be some big buying that could come in from Brazil. But the others are still very quiet. Mexico, Argentina, other South American markets, not really stepping in any big way. Southeast Asia, I think the problem for Southeast Asia for suppliers is there's a lot of Iranian supply in Southeast Asia. Everyone is buying Iranian product. So they're not really desperate unless we see something happen. And I'm still hoping the situation doesn't escalate to that level that shipments will get affected from Iran. But there are people worried also for Arab Gulf, like, the Strait of Hormuz and all these cargoes that come in, insurance premiums, not only for Iran, but for other AG producers or other producers in the region, freight will go up. So there are worries. But I think what is happening now, that I think the buyers have learned that they can take their time because there's so much supply. And I think Iranian going into Southeast Asia is not helping other producers. There is enough Iranian that is material that's available everywhere, any Southeast Asian market that you check. So it is sort of making up for this loss of Chinese supply in the region. But again, the interesting fact there in Southeast Asia is the prilled urea price is so much higher than the granular urea price. And that is only because of China, that China is out of the market. And Iran can supply a lot of granular urea, but their prilled urea supply is still very limited. And there's a big, difference as well. If you look at the granular price is 307 FOB Iran. The prilled price is 317 or something. Like, there's this $10 difference. So I think all these markets, definitely they have to buy. Even Europe, they should be buying something in October, but everyone is delaying. And I'm not sure what they're waiting for. Probably it's not the best of times for farmers, right? The rains have destroyed European crops, and there are not enough rains in South America. So it's been such a tough time for farmers. The costs are so high. So no wonder they all just wait. So I think we have just been in limbo last few years, then when the buyers just keep waiting till the last moment. But of course, all these markets need to come back and they all need to buy. So because of that reason, I think in the short term, over the next few months, the outlook is very firm for urea, because if India keeps buying, and even if there is some buying from one or two of these markets, that would support prices.
I see. Thank you very much. And do you think there are any other factors, let's put geopolitical storm aside, but some other maybe industry-related factors that might influence the supply-demand balance in Q4?
So I think from maintenance or turnaround point of view, I don't think there are any major maintenance planned. So most plants will either have small on and off maintenance, but there's no severe supply issue. I think, Maria, you know this as well. Like China, I guess they will stay away from the export market. They're not going to return anytime soon. I think if the Chinese government sees all these geopolitical issues come in and commodity prices are rising, they're not going to suddenly say, well, you can export. Even if the Chinese market, there is no demand there, they're not going to export or allow the procedures to be relaxed. And also, November, December, Chinese domestic demand also does start. So I think China will continue to be a factor where they will stay away. So that supply is not going to hit the market. And I know we were talking about this before about Egyptian supply. As of now, they're all producing, say, very roughly 80% of capacity. They're all around that rate, and they've been around that rate over the last few months. So nothing has changed there. When we talk to our colleagues in gas, they all say that there are quite a few LNG imports that are going to Egypt. And they don't think that even with the situation in the Middle East, those should not get hampered. And there are lots of swaps happening as well. So people, if somebody has a cargo, say in Europe or somewhere closer, they swap it for something depending on if there's somebody in Asia with a gas cargo, somebody in Europe with a gas cargo, they're doing a lot of swaps depending on where the vessel is located. So things are fine. So as of now, on the Egyptian supply side, we are not expecting any issues. If there are and something escalates, much more than what is expected, that could be a different matter. But Egypt, I don't think should have any big shutdowns. Maybe something small here and there, but nothing there. And China, I think, will stay away. So in some way, they balance themselves. But yeah, I think these would be the important factors. And we need to watch the weather, of course. Crop prices looking a little better than what they were looking, I guess, in the middle of the year. So that is lending some support. But I still think, like on the end user side, there's a lot of reservation to really step in and buy. Like everyone just waits.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. And if we look at the US market, US is also very important and large, let's say, participant. So how do you evaluate both import and export to and from US in Q4? Specifically, how have recent hurricanes affected production and both imports and exports? Because we know that they influenced port operations significantly. Do you think there will be some more impact in Q4?
So I think, and the hurricane actually, which is on right now,
Yeah.
there is a lot of impact that is expected. But I think because it's on the Tampa side, is mostly on phosphates. So urea is not really directly affected with this. But of course, like you said, logistics could be an issue. And we've also seen this year, actually, so far, US imports have increased. And I think it's been a decent 20% increase year on year. So I mean, it's difficult to gauge where the domestic production is in the US because the exports have also come down, but that could be due to a lot of other factors as well. But in general, I think they're importing quite a lot. There is demand. That market is very volatile and it sees a lot of ups and downs. But I think the US, um, like it's become so isolated now as a market that I was almost surprised when, because of all what is happening globally, that the barges started going up over the last few weeks. But I think, yeah, they will continue to have demand, but they also like not really focusing much on exports. There have been delays. Like one major producer had quite a lot of backlog in meeting its orders, and I think that was contributing to the uptick in the market. But now I think things will slow down. It looks like they have enough urea, but there is still good demand in that market. So yeah, I don't think the focus there is on exporting much. They still continue to import. They are still trading at a discount to if you look at the replacement levels in the Arab Gulf, etc. So, but there is still a lot of cargo coming there because there are contract cargoes, and also producers need to find a home for that. We still have a lot of production. So I think US is getting more and more like isolated as a market. It's more liquid. Of course, as we are seeing, we now have a daily. I mean, we've always had it, but now it sees a lot more liquidity. The daily US NOLA trading and the prices. So yeah, I think it's one market in itself, but I don't think that anything is it's going to really influence. Rather, it's getting influenced by what is happening globally, but I don't think it'll be an influencer anytime soon.
I see. I see. Thank you very much. To sum up our discussion, what would you recommend to the buyers to do right now? We are really in the eye of the storm, and now everyone, as we discussed, is stepping up. But still, we are approaching the moment when many traders, many buyers will need to take the decision. Should we buy already, or when should we buy? After your opinion.
So that is a very, very difficult question. And as an editor, I'm not allowed to give any advice but I can, of course, talk about supply and demand. I think right now the supply is looking tight. So anyone who enters the market will have to probably pay up. And it looks like for the next 1 or 2 months, that is going to be the situation, and maybe even 2024, because there is still a lot of pending demand in so many markets. And I know for Ukraine, there is so much interest for the Black Sea, for Sokar material and from material from other Black Sea producers. And even those prices we are seeing have gone up quite a lot. I mean, always hard to get an estimate, but now I remember those prices were below 300 FOB a few months ago, and now we already are talking about 355 FOB. So those levels have definitely gone up. So it is going up. I think it's just a game of whoever can wait, they wait, and whoever has to step in, I guess. Not an easy time, I get to be a buyer, and I would say not even an easy time to be a seller, because there is so much Last week, we saw the sellers had totally withdrawn their offers in most markets because they were expecting prices to go up. So I don't even know, Maria, who is able to buy and at the right time. It's always so hard to predict when to step in. But I don't think prices are coming off anytime. If in the short term they are not, because with all this talk of tenders in India and tensions across the world, it's not going to be, I think, a time when we will see prices coming off.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Deepika. Thank you very much for the insights. And I will be very, very happy to host you again, to regularly host you, to share your in-depth, market knowledge and insights. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. As usually, I will leave all credentials of Deepika and ICIS in the comments. And please let me know in the comments what is your view upon final volume of the Indian tender and when do you think the next tender will evolve. Please subscribe to the channel, put like to this video, and see you soon.